Hello, and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, divorce support for dads, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval, and I'm your host. I created this podcast in the Divorced Advocate community as a result of my own high conflict divorce, and because you as a dad deserve all the resources necessary to thrive through this challenging time. I encourage you to check out our website at thedivorcedadvocate.com, where there are resources that correspond to this episode, as well as free access to our membership community, where you will find live meetings, free workshops and courses, private discussion groups, and more. And now on to this week's episode. Themselves, but let's go around. We got somebody new here in the room today. So why don't we start? We're going to start in the room. We're going to do something different. I usually start online because there's more guys online, but we're going to start in the room and do our intros in the room, with the exception of me because I always go last.
All right. Hey guys, my name's Rob Bernard. Drove down from Evergreen because I only drove down because I was looking forward to seeing you guys all in the same room. But no, I like face to face and appreciative of Jude setting this up. I'm in the middle of a divorce right now, not divorced yet. Had a wife after 20 years saying she doesn't want to be a wife anymore. And we had just bought a house in Florida, so it seemed awfully convenient that right after that, she decided she wants to be single and start her life over in Florida. So anyway, looking for some guys to commiserate with that have been through their own painful experiences, and I'm working on trying to figure out how to move on and having a hard time with that. So,
anyway. How many kids you have?
2 kids, and actually they're her kids, but I had them since they were 5 or 6, and I'm tight with them both. To me, they're my kids, and so that brings an interesting variable into it as well. I'm trying to maintain that relationship, and so far I'm doing a good job.
And how old are they?
So they're now 23 and 25. So I had them almost 20 years. I brought them into my house, took care of them, and the wife, as soon as the kids left, the wife said, I'm sure that I hear this a lot, her feelings had changed toward me, and I'm no longer the man that she needs me to be. So it's a tough pill to swallow.
It's definitely your fault.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, but that's yeah. No, you're gonna hear from the guys, but yeah, oftentimes that's a lot of gaslighting.
And I'm working with gaslighting. I'm working with a counselor, and thank God I had a doctor that right away I told him what was going on. He put me on Lexapro, which really helps me to gather my thoughts and be composed. So
good, man. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see. I'm going to go around on screen. Austin, that puts you up first.
Hello. Hi, guys. I'm Austin. Separated in late 2020, divorced the following year. 2 boys, 22 and 18. No, 21 and 18. It's been a very bumpy road. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. I can't believe I'm saying it. I've actually started dating again, which is incredible for how much fun just holding hands can be. But yeah, it's an adventure, and I'm enjoying it. And I have a cat that is staring at me because I've talked to myself apparently. Anyway, but yeah, it's been a good several weeks of serving so many meetings.
Well, it sounds like you've been busy. That's good, man.
For sure.
Congratulations. That's awesome. Glad to hear.
Thanks.
Glad to hear that. Want to hear some more stories, so we'll have to get together. Paul, welcome back, my friend. Good to see you.
Likewise, you. Morning, guys. Well, yeah, I'll jump in. My name is Paul. I've been divorced about a little over a year, so it's like 14 months now. I have 2 kids. siblings and they're and both. Still challenging, still super challenging. It's okay. I hope that it's going to get better. Just haven't gotten there yet in regards to just working through the process of trying to be on the same page with the mother. It's a good point where I just don't think it's ever good. Not to be pessimistic, but I guess a realist about the situation. Yes, like Austin, I'm sorry I missed a handful of meetings. It's been tied up with sports game. Really hot slots. Jump in. But I'm back, so looking to catch up with everybody. Just go ahead.
Good. Well, welcome back, man. It's good to see you. Jay, good morning.
Good morning.
What's going on with Jay? Introduce yourself, my friend. Our friend Rob here doesn't know you're infamous with the group, but our friend Rob here doesn't know you. So,
Okay. Yeah, my name's Jay Harris. I'm here in the Denver metro area, and was married 27 years. And my wife wanted it out. Sounds like most of the women want it out more than the men, but so we separated in 2016, divorced in 2018. We have 6 children together. Never been married and divorced before, so this is the first go around. My oldest just turned 29. My youngest is 15. And 3 boys and 3 girls. They're great kids, but my ex turned them against me with parental alienation, which is really not a good thing. I mean, a lot of guys out there are calling it evil, but I haven't seen my 3 oldest in over 3 years. Haven't seen her talk to them. And I just found out my youngest daughter, Ella, turned 18. And the way the laws here in Colorado are so jacked up, I still have to pay child support, but she doesn't have to do anything that we signed in the parenting plan. So she not see me at all, and yet I still have to pay for her. It's unbelievable. So I talked to my attorney yesterday and tried to get out of that. And he said, you can't. You signed up for child support, and that's it. Well, the good thing is in 11 months, I don't have to pay for it anymore. But my ex-wife wants me to help pay for her college without having any communication with her. And I said, that's not going to happen. So if you want to communicate, I'm willing to help out. If not, then there's no help. So it's been a rough road. I wasn't surprised about the separation and divorce, but the rough road's been with the kids. That's been really tough because we were very close for most of their lives. And my second oldest son, Tim, lives in Fort Collins, has a baby boy, and he will not let me see him, and I have no idea why. I saw him twice, but he said, well, you can't see me anymore. I'm like, why? The meetings were good. So I think it's his wife. His wife is really weird, and she doesn't like me for whatever reason. She doesn't even know me, so it's kind of weird. So we've got a mediation coming with my youngest son, Noah. That he and I are very close. We're like that. We're really tight together. So that's been really good. So anyway, that's where I'm at right now. I did meet a beautiful young woman about 20 years younger than me. We're going to get married this summer. And that's going very well. And so things are good in my life. It's just, this part with my kids is tough, but everything else is going very well. Yeah.
Good, man. Well, I'm glad that you're here every meeting. We appreciate it. I'm sorry to hear about your challenges. Chan, good morning.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Jude with a quick reminder about the Divorced Advocate Foundation for Fathers, which is our nonprofit that helps dads through divorce with legal education, free or reduced cost coaching, and mental health resources. If you own a business or know someone who does,
there's an easy way to help by connecting credit card processing through our partner program. Part of the fees go straight to the foundation with no added cost to the business, and 98% of businesses are actually able to save money on their processing fees. It's a win-win. So if you know a business that accepts credit cards, get them in touch with me by sending a warm introduction email to jude@thedivorcedadvocate.com or give me a call directly at 720-255-1021.
Good morning.
You are up, my friend, because you jumped late. So we put you on the hot seat right away.
Sounds good. It's been it's been a trying year for me. I have a similar situation in alienation, and I haven't really talked to my kid. But my understanding is that he's identifying as trans, and I'm trying to be supportive of female at birth, hormone therapy. My father-in-law flew to Colorado to meet with my stepson to ask him if this was real or if it was something that by accident planted in my kid's head. That's how, let's just say, persuasive she can be. So, long and short, it's been a trying year, but we had temporary orders probably about, it's been at least 4 or 5 months ago, and temporary orders were, of course, there's my financial obligations, and she's supposed to make sure we have these step-up meetings so that we can start to reintegrate, and we're in therapy, and of course, none of that happened, right? No therapy, no meetings, and then New Year's Eve, we met at like the village for coffee, so we had one meeting, and then last Friday, because the PRE now is coming to an end, and I think she felt like, because after the first set of meetings between her and I, the PRE said, look, I'm going to do some psychological testing. We have 2 psychiatrists in the family. Neither one of them ever said borderline personality disorder, but I'm really interested in seeing what the testing shows. There's narcissism there, and of course, accusations were flailing the other way that I'm not a narcissist, all that kind of thing. Long story short, things are coming to a head. It looks like finally she's drugged this out. Like the therapist was supposed to happen months ago, and finally they have a therapist as of last week. But then even in communicating the therapist to me, I said, hey, can you give me the phone number for the therapist? She said, well, you can find him on Psychology Today. And she said, I gave her your email address. And it was like one I don't use, right? Of course, I said, why? And every single step, right? Every single step. So the good thing is, and the accusations, of course, were that I'm a drug addict, right? So I'm very successful in everything I do, except our relationship, which, it was doomed from the beginning. I stayed for the kid. There wasn't love there. I was like, oh my God, she's pregnant. I stayed. Mistake, huge mistake. But so all of this is now finally coming in. I went through the evaluation. The evaluator's like, look, if you guys have love and understanding, you wouldn't be here again. I was like, yes, exactly. So the PRE is done, evaluation is done. And so to your point, Jay, like I had met with her last Friday. We came up with this step-up parenting plan, which was, okay, understanding that your kid and you, we don't have any communication now. We're gonna do it. We're gonna step up little by little. Like we'll start with dinner or lunch every week, and then a couple of hours, and then we'll go to a weekend, and then a week. So, but I had submitted that. But she has some inkling that the PRE is not going her way, because this is the first thing she wanted to do with me this whole year, right? And so my lawyer saw the email, because I haven't been talking to the lawyer that much. It's like I'm going through this PRE stuff. She saw the email that I had sent, joint parental, and she's like, well, you might want to submit your own. So I sent another email, and I said, reflecting on what happened since temporary orders, our problem is not coming up with a plan or agreement, it's adhering to it. And so when we write these orders, the final orders, I think what I'm going to do is I got an open suggestion as well. But there's that, I forget what they call them. There's an intermediary, right? There's like a
PCDM.
Yes, exactly. So I think I'm going to add that person, like, I don't know if they maybe we adhere to the plan, but if we're not adhering to it, maybe I go to them.
Yeah, we can talk about that for sure, because that's a good option, and definitely one when you've got a challenging X or soon to be X, to try to keep things in alignment and have a third party that's independently making, not making the decisions, but judging whether or not somebody's being unreasonable or not, and then coming to a decision. Yeah, no, those are it can be a positive. But let's talk about that for sure. Well, thanks, Chan. Good to see you again. Welcome back. Let's see. The order keeps switching for some reason. So, Andrew. Good morning, Andrew.
Hey, Andrew. Welcome. Glad you're here. We're not there in person with you.
Yeah, we've been trying to get Andrew for a year and a half here. Doesn't matter if I brought homemade cookies today, Andrew. So, John only will come if there's breakfast burritos. So, I mean, I appreciate you being here and enjoying some of the baked goods, but because we got a high maintenance crew here, I basically need a spread. I'll take orders before. Anyway, sorry to interrupt, Andrew. Go ahead, my friend.
Rob, I'm about a year and a half out from a divorce, amicable, mutual. We were together for almost 40 years. That makes me about 90, I think. And compared to the rest of the guys, I say things are kind of boring. I must say that I learned a lot from everybody, even though we're all in different places and are dealing with different spouses and child issues. I've got a almost 21-year-old in college. She's doing good. I'm focusing a lot on kind of the long view, and that is there is life after divorce. The divorce was relatively uncomplicated, but there's still a lot of I's to dot, T's to cross. Something that came up in the past week or so. I lost my mom and dad a couple of years ago. Actually, my dad and my mom more recently. And in the will, there's my dad has left stuff to my ex, and we were married at the time. And I know he wants her to have that money. He loved her very, very much. She loved him. I love her, and I love him. And so I kind of just work through, kind of some legal stuff that is really uneventful, but reminds me that, in fact, my ex is in my life for the rest of my life. And it's okay. And I think it's okay that I'm in her life. But these things come up. And so while I focus on the joy of, like Austin saying, dating and holding the hand of somebody, also where I have responsibility and commitment to my ex and my daughter forever, in a healthy way, not in a codependent way. So that's where I'm at, guys.
Good, man. Always contemplative and insightful. I appreciate it. Appreciate you being here every meeting too. Thanks. John, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I do like this. We got a lot of tacos on my as a backup plan. So my name's John. I'm in Lakewood. Been divorced 5 or 6 years now. I have a 19-year-old daughter. But I was successful in getting sole custody of and moving out here to Colorado. So almost 5 years ago now. So legally, I have pretty much, no obligation other than alimony to my ex. Got a restraining order against her, and she still continues to mess with my daughter. And every time I think of how shitty and loving she takes it another step lower. She did yesterday. Just what somebody can say about their own child, and what they they can do. I have around me. I run a group for the support group for people coming out of narcissistically abusive relationships, personality disorder people. And so I understand the pathology, but it still amazes me which human beings are capable of. It's just working with them.
John.
Yeah, she went on a tirade. She associates my daughter with the Columbine shooters now that we live out here, kind of close to Columbine. In the end, basically said that she wishes she had
Good grief.
I'm sure we're getting mother. It's like, wow. And, we're, I don't have any current court cases with her, but we're trying to protect my daughter and doing some things. And unfortunately, all this goes to my lawyer. I don't see it directly. I don't see much of it anymore. My lawyer, unless I need it for a legal reason to respond or whatnot. But she's like, this is perfect for your daughter's case. It perfectly illustrates exactly why we're asking the judge for the protections we're asking for. So it's like I had to tell my daughter because we're going to use it in her case, and we're going to use it in her case. It's not the kind of crappy one you share with somebody. So that's part of why I didn't wake up this morning. It's talking to my daughter from 11 to 1. And, I still can't shut my head up. I'm just thinking about it. I molded over all day with her, even tell her and stuff. It's just like, what a shitty person. Well, let us till one of us dies. It's I still keep going back till death do you part. And disordered person, you can't get rid of. It's like I'm happy for Andrew and people that have semi-reasonable and can just put it in perspective and look at the good things. But it's really hard to. I don't feel like I can move on because I can't expose someone else to this insanity. That's what I actually do. She found out who's dating. She has no trouble communicating every friend on Facebook, LinkedIn, saying all kinds of stuff. She continues to do that in the background all the time. It's just kind of sad. So.
Oh man, sorry to hear about that recent interaction. Appreciate you being here. I think it's a good reminder that we don't hear, and like you're mentioning, Rob, about all of a sudden now we got a house in Florida and kids are out of the house and I'm not the man anymore. Like we hear they're the fairer sex, right? They're no less duplicitous or planning or harsh or mean or cruel than any man ever is at all. So we don't get that. We don't have Hallmark stories or Discovery Channel specials about that with women and psychotic women and what they've done. But at least a couple of us here have experienced one. Some of us one, if not more. Unfortunately, if those of us like myself haven't figured it out soon enough, but it's a whole different story. But so point being is we gotta pay attention to that. We think we know somebody and we think everything's fine, but those disordered personalities just can wreak havoc and they're challenging. So, but that's why John's got his group, which he mentioned, which I highly recommend. If you're here in the metro area, it is in person. It's around cluster B personality disorders, and he does a great job of helping people on all whatever spectrum they're at with it, just coming to realization with it or having lived with it like he has or I have or some of the rest of us have for a while. So definitely check that out. And then always show up here because this is a good place for us to chat as well. And so I guess I got to introduce myself because I'm the last one. I'm Jude, and I found this a couple of years ago now to just give us an opportunity to chat. I had my own high conflict divorce. Been divorced 9.5 years. I'm still in court with her. I have pending motion, and she has response motions, etc. I have 3 daughters who are 17, 14, and 12. And my oldest is estranged from her mom, lives with me full time, and the other 2 they go 50-50. And so my big news this week is I switched attorneys. My former attorney I've had now for 3.5 years on my existing motion that is 3.5 years old
is not getting it done, and this is just getting dragged on and on and on. And so I just made the change. And so far, I feel good. This guy seems to be having some creative ideas to help us at least move it along. I don't know if there's going to be resolution. John, I got to say, when I'm wrong, I got to admit when I'm wrong, but I had held out hope that we were going to come to some resolution. But now that the whole fiasco with my ex's boyfriend and they've separated. For those of you who don't know, my ex met a guy, moved in with him 6 months, moved my daughter in with him. Well, that lasted 6 months. It was a fiasco, and then it was a big train wreck and sexual abuse allegation. She went off the rails. The good news is it wasn't off the rails on me; it was off the rails on him, right? So then I only became public enemy number 2 for at least the 6 months. But now that time is over, and so we have not come to resolution, John. Which John just, if you see John shaking his head, that's just good advice to take. Double, think twice about what your hopes are. Not that he's dashing everybody's hopes and dreams. He's just the devil on the one shoulder, going, I don't know about that.
What has happened?
Right.
Actually, I'm in a book in the profession I'm in, for people, safety engineers, things keep happening. Unfortunately, this world, a borderline has no stable sense of anything. So just because she's on board today, tomorrow she's put together. That's the unfortunate part.
Yeah.
John, I had a similar thing happen to me. I've known my ex for over 30 years, and during the divorce, we were actually at a dining room table. And my mother-in-law was sitting to the left of me. My ex was right across from me. We were still married, going through the process. She literally said right to my face, I would like it if I could never see you again. And basically, she just said, I wish you were dead. And I'm just looking at her. I was incredulous. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I didn't know what to say. I couldn't even talk. I'm looking at her with my eyes open, looking over on my mother-in-law, thinking, what happened to this woman? She lost it. She completely lost it. It's like, what did I do that you want me dead? And so, Jude, maybe part of our discussion is a lot of us need help, because sometimes I think, or in my heart, which is evil sometimes, thinking, I wish you were dead. And then I think, wait a minute, don't wish that. The kids need a mom.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about our feelings and what we can do with ourselves, because I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to become angry and bitter like my ex. I want to be a better person every day. I want to be better than I was yesterday, and next year be better than I am this year. And so how do you deal with those feelings of just wanting this person to die?
Yeah.
And, what do you do? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if I'm hearing you, I think we're talking about forgiveness, right? How do we forgive, truly forgive when we are faced with John's story, dealing with somebody on an ongoing basis, because we're never separate, because we have our kiddos together. So, the forgiveness, most times you're forgiving something for something that happened or whatever, and then you move on, right? But how do you forgive somebody ongoing? That's a challenge, and it almost becomes like a practice, Jay, right? You've got to continue to practice forgiving, and it's just an ongoing skill that you start learning for the first time, which is challenging enough. But then as things go on, like John described his situation, or mine with my ex, who's now causing problems again, you got to continue that forgiveness process and do that ongoing. Otherwise, what happens is what you just described is you start, your heart starts to calcify, you start to get bitter, you start to get upset. And look, I've been guilty of this many, many times, right? If I stop that ongoing forgiveness process, and then it permeates into my interactions with my children, and how I talk about their mom, and how I present myself with the whole dynamic. So I guess I would say, Jay, it's just an ongoing thing. And
the way I frame it now is like it's an opportunity for me to hone a skill and get better at it. Like if we're doing a sport, like fortunately, if we're doing a sport or something we like, we're choosing to hone that skill, get better. Maybe they'll play basketball, shoot hoops, whatever. You get better at your jump shot. This is one that we're maybe being forced to learn to have to do, but it's necessary to do.
There's a good book that I just finished called The Four Agreements.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys have read it.
Yep, Don Miguel Ruiz.
And then there's the Fifth Agreement. I just started that, but if you guys have read it, it's helped me. It's all about living in the present. All the things that were raised a certain way. I was raised Catholic, so I've got this big guilt thing in my head. Which when I talk with my therapist, she's like, I can pick up somebody that was raised Catholic usually in the first 30 minutes. Yep. On how they look at things. Anyway, it's been a helpful book for me, but there was something that I took away. Matthew McConaughey in an interview said, "Hey, who's your role model?" And he said, "It's going to be me in 3 years or 5 years, whatever." But I'm kind of looking at myself that way because I'm struggling with the same thing. It's anger. It's like, I hope my wife gets, I had just bought her a friggin' Miata to boot. And then, she's like, I don't want to be married anymore. It's like, but in any event, it's like, I hope she gets hit, T-bone. I'm like, nah, that's not a good way to think. And for me, it's helped me to kind of frame it and not have regrets and not live today. And regrets and that anger, that's bad for you inside too, because it rips it's not good for your health. So, thinking every day I've gotten back into working out, eating healthy, and, taking that negative energy. It's like, shit, if I'm angry, I'm going to jump on the treadmill for 30 minutes or go lift some weights. Better way anyway, for me, that has helped me a bunch. Yeah.
I think I like what Mark Twain said. He said, it's not the things in the Bible I don't understand that bother me. It's the things in the Bible that I do understand. And so the Apostle Peter went to Jesus and said, Lord, should I forgive 7 times? Because the Pharisees were like, well, 3 is enough. And Jesus said 70 times 7 a day. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't know if I'm capable of that. And so, talk about a hard teaching. You read that and you think, how do you do that? That's not even humanly possible. So, 70 times 7, that's a lot of forgiveness every day. And so, but you're right, Jude. The forgiveness has to keep going on.
Yeah.
Because these crazy exes come back and they just keep poking you, poking you and see where they can, get you, like what's going on with John. And fortunately, my ex isn't doing so much anymore. I'm glad she got married and she's moving away with her spouse soon. But this ongoing stuff is really draining. And I just got to go work out and, forget about it and just move on.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Yeah.
To the specific point, I know I struggled with those same thoughts for a long time. And I had just sort of started trying to learn to meditate. And that's like the one thing that I really got out of it, like to clear your head and move on to a different thought, or to move on to a different thought if you're meditating. But like, even just trying to move on to something stupid like what's for dinner, or what am I making, or what do I have for work tomorrow? Like, even just trying to distract yourself and go a long way. I know it did for me, because those creepy crawly thoughts are not easy to get rid of at all.
Yeah, and
it scared me at times, and that's why I had to find some mechanisms to get rid of, or not to get rid of, but to remove them from my head at the time.
Yeah, that's a good point, Austin. And we can't control the situation. We can't control our exes. What we can control is trying to deal with the thoughts that are coming in, because the thoughts then become words, the words become actions, and then that whole snowball effect on that. So if you can be cognizant, like you said, just starting to pay attention to what your thoughts are, right? Recognizing that you're having these thoughts and that they're not positive, they're not healthy for you is a first good step. And then learning how to go and let it go, go on to the next one. Or like we had Ryan on not long ago, about maybe 5 or 6 months, of Intermatrix systems, and he talks about their system of how you actually take your thoughts and you
you're able to utilize and understand what you're thinking, and then move them in a direction that you actually want to achieve, right? So that's like the graduate level abilities to start, cultivating and curating your life, starting with your thoughts, right? So that's exactly spot on. Awesome with that. And part of that is the forgiveness, right, Jay? Like you gotta 70. I love I always appreciate, we share the same faith, you and I. So I always appreciate some of your biblical perspectives on that. But yeah, I forgot about that. Christ does say on and on, like you've got to keep forgiving. And that's, hey, look, there's no better reminder than divorce for that, right? Maybe that's part of our life journey here, is that the however many of us here, we're needing to learn that lesson in this lifetime, right? To forgive, because we're stuck with having to learn that skill. So thanks for that reminder, Jay. That's definitely good.
What else with my kids? I'm growing up in Brown, and my mom just passed away. I just got back from Boston for her memorial service. She was 94. She died without pain. She had lived life. She was a good mom, and it went very well. So my crazy siblings, I don't know what happened to them, man. You leave a little bit of assets and they go nuts. But anyway, that's another story. But I got a bunch of pictures. My ex took she cleaned out her house. She left only crap and dirt, and took all the kids' pictures, so I don't have anything. But she sent a bunch of pictures to my mom. So I've got stacks and stacks of pictures of my kids growing up, which is wonderful. But I'm really grateful. I look at those pictures and I don't have any anger towards them or anything like with my ex. And I did have a pastor friend of mine say, you got to look at it this way. They are in a cult. The cult of Jennifer, that's my ex-wife's name. They're in a cult. Until they want to come out of the cult, you're not going to be able to communicate with them. And that really stuck in my head thinking, he's right. They're like in a freaking cult. Their eyes are glazed over. And if you know anybody that's been in a cult, even if you go after them and chase them and try to bring them back, they're not going to leave. They're not going to leave until they're ready. And so every day I just pray, God make them ready whenever they're ready to come back to me. But I just am so grateful. I don't have that anger in my heart with them as I do with my ex. And so when they come back to me, I'll be very welcoming and bring forgiveness and reconciliation. So to think about that they're in a cult, and even if you chase them, they won't come back until they're ready.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, John?
Yeah, that's a model I use with a lot of people. It's like, my mom, the cult follower, the cult leader, she enables everything he does. And, as I figured out my situation, realized I was living my mom's life, wanted to help her. I also realized, I can't help her until she hits a pain point where she wants help. If she's got to justify her existence, she believes all the gaslighting she's heard for 60 years. It's really sad. It's hard to break out. I mean, in my group, I do a lot of people trying to leave situations that they mentally know they're wrong, and that tie to somebody who's abused you and rescued you, it's like your parent beats the shit out of you, they feed you dinner, and beat the shit out of you. It's just like it's an extremely highly effective psychological training technique.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what some of us have been through. And typically, if you're susceptible to it as adults, you probably lived some form of it as a kid, but that's not 100% true. But it's probably 85% true for the hundreds of people that I've talked to. And to me, my dad is a cult leader, and I just suffered the wrath to be like questioning the cult leader. It's just like my sister played along and got all the favors of the cult leader. It's just kind of what happens. So on the anger, forgiveness, things like that, I'm going to run these things a little bit different. And kind of associate the process more with grieving than forgiveness. And I think anger is important part of the grieving process, the kind of motivational to look at yourself, look at other people. It's my perspective. It's the person's an abuser, you don't need to forgive them. But that's my perspective. Everybody can decide forgiveness, what it means to them. So I try to get to apathy with those people. And certainly, if I could tell you, your kids, you got the right viewpoint. Have compassion for them. they may be saying shitty things, they may be ignoring you, but you got to have compassion in the sense that, they're in this world where they don't know what reality is. Unfortunately, they're not being told reality. But at some point, if they go on to, unfortunately, be like your ex and stuff, that's, so I think the people in my group that struggle hardest is when your kid turns out to be disordered and like your piece of X and starts taking it out on you and other people. That's a really hard thing to figure out how to have any compassion for. But my ex, I in my dad, I really could care less about either one of them. The thoughts of wishing they were dead is very common in my group. I think again that's kind of a healthy thing. This person wasn't good for you. Why would you want them dead? And you don't want them tormenting your kids and other people out there that you don't even know yet, kind of thing. But to me, it's trying to kind of get empathy. And I'm there, but when she says stuff, it still hurts. It's like we're still human, and it's just. But for the most part, during my divorce, one of my best friends joked, it's like there's probably 30 people ahead of me in the line of people that want to kill my ex. Me and my ex, really nasty to everybody. People knew it kind of stuff, and people knew I was just I did a lot of shit, and I still do. And I'm paying for shit that produces nothing. She does nothing for her daughter. She's never paid child support. She has no trouble catching element checks, but she never paid child support. Just it's her right to do what she wants to do. And so at some level, mine is such a perfect psychological model that there's nothing to question. It's the ones that oscillate the game better. Typically called the covert narcissists. That in society look like these wonderful human beings, but behind those doors are monsters. That's a little, you're getting gaslighting to one of your friends who say, "Oh, it's really not that bad. He's a nice guy. He does all these nice things. He goes to church every week. All these things that, don't in themselves make you a good person, but you kind of put on the facade and give people, kind of a layer to doubt, hey, my analysis is right, but they kind of hate, kind of uncomfortable feelings are important to listen to and realize that's your body telling you this person's not good for you. And detach or disengage. Obviously it's hard when my kids with them to detach and disengage, but kind of a part of the process.
Shan, you want to say something?
Question for John. I'm afraid my mind might fall closer into that category that looks like a more normal human being in most realms. I don't know. Even when I saw her, this is the thing where she picks her eyebrows to the point that they bleed sometimes, and then the kid ended up self-harming at some point. But my question was, okay, so the PRE they did, it was depending on how long it took you. It took me about 4 or 5 hours to do the psychological testing. Does that style of testing uncover any of the either borderline or narcissistic traits, or does it take more than that?
It does not.
I think it, I guess it depends on the person interpreting the test results.
He's supposed to be pretty good. So
it's gonna be.
You're saying no, and John, you're saying maybe you can.
Yeah. Well, so John, tell me. I want to give an opinion on this, and you tell me what you think. It's hard to get any therapist to go down the road of diagnosis around these personality disorders in general. These PREs are not meant to be psychological, like hardcore psychological analysis, like by a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist or anything. They're really looking to make determinations around the parenting time, the structure of the environment, all that stuff. So while they might point out, and I've had them done on myself, my ex, I'm getting ready to do it again, they will point out potentially personality traits that would align with that, but they're not going to come out and say, she's got borderline personality disorder, and the kids need to stay with Chan or something like that. It's not going to be definitive like that. These guys are all working from the outside to the middle to just get this done. They all are. It's a cottage industry. This person that's doing your PRE is going to need to get a PRE done by your wife's attorney at some time, maybe in the future. So they're not going to completely piss them off. They're not going to piss off a judge and walk into a court and burn down the house on one side or the other, because they're going to have to get in front of that judge another time. So you just have to keep some of that in mind. And I know, because I know I get held up like all this hope. Yes, we're going to get a PRE, and it's going to be like, yes, they're going to see how crazy shit. And she literally didn't show up for the appointments. She was drinking. She missed her parenting time. She failed alcohol. I mean, like, the person doing the PRE said, I've never had somebody so completely screw up a PRE as my ex did. And it still came back like, well, we need to do this, we need to do that. I mean, he did do one thing which he wasn't charged with, which he said, and the kid should be in my care while she's going through her stuff, which he didn't have to do, but it was just like very subtle. So I just want to temper these expectations around this, because we get really excited.
Yeah, and that's my expectation. I was just curious on both your experience on that level of testing. Yeah, and I didn't think they were quite out borderline or something like that. So just trying to get an idea of that. The ex had told me there were some often comments by the PRE that struck her as particularly weird. She, like, the PRE said, well, did you take her to the doctor? Did you take him to the doctor? Like, you're the parent, you're in charge. Like, why would she say something like that? She at some level, she doesn't have faith that the ex is taking care of the kid, right? To say, well, did you take him to the doctor? And so she'll say things like, well, what did you tell them? And the amazing part is, I really didn't say anything overtly negative about her. It's just the way things happen, the way she alienated my mom from the kid, the only biological grandmother the kid could ever had, my dad, again, because she's adopted, right? So she destroyed those relationships, right? That's about the extent of the negativity, other than we didn't get along.
Yeah.
But so for the PRE to come in there and say things like that, I think they were seeing something. I won't know until the report comes out, but just wanted to get your take on that testing bit, and that makes sense. Their goal, if it was, in your case, there was the alcoholism and all of that. So they gave you more parenting time until she went through therapy? Is that what you said? Okay.
Yeah, there's a whole cascading effect of things that had to happen. And then the PRE, and just also remember that the PRE is just a tool in your case. It's an independent third party that is looking at both sides of the situation and coming up with recommendations. So it's not but the thing is the courts are very likely to adopt most, if not all, of the recommendations of the PRE. Not all of the time, but most of the time, because they feel like, okay, this isn't your attorney, it's not her attorney, it's not you, it's not he said, she said. They've actually taken the time to look at this, and this is what they have recommended. Just don't be excited that the recommendations are going to really fall on one side or the other. They can, depending on how egregious the situation was, or how you presented yourself, or how your ex presented herself. But it's not. It's usually not. And then you're going to take that, and your attorney is going to utilize the best parts of that report for you in your trial, and your ex is going to utilize the best parts, because everything's not going to come back positive for both sides, right? They're going to find stuff, and there's stuff in, with my psychological tests that came back were like, he's rigid, or he's too structured, or stuff like that. And these psychological tests are around because they make sense, right? And that goes back to kind of what John was talking about is, our exes became how they became because of whatever their experiences are. We can't expect that to change. And, some of this disordered thinking is in ourselves too. We've just coming to the realizations through something that's as difficult and challenging as this, as to what our part is in it. And we're trying to fix it, right? That's why we're on this call. That's why we're doing the work. That's why Rob's reading books and recommending them. Why Andrew shows up every week. That's why, Jay does his exercising to the extent that he does and takes care of himself, right? We're actually doing something. They're like externally focused all the time. But we still have the stuff going on in our heads too, right? We still got stuff that we're working on as well.
I've talked to hundreds of people that have gone through the process. I was divorced at a different stage, similar process of psychological evaluation, different names. I know the one I know that's kind of diagnosed with that, of course, psychologist.
Yeah.
But I don't even think the diagnosis per se mattered. It was the patterns of behavior and the effect on our daughter. And in my case, they were extremely, demonstrable. It was, my ex's own text. It wasn't my stories of what she did. We had things. And in my case, my daughter had a school guidance counselor for the 2 years prior, to my ex going off the deep end and through the year of the custody evaluation, who had a social worker background as a guidance counselor. And she, my daughter shared everything with her for years before, the incident and child services and everything else getting involved. And so, my court psychologist didn't even want to talk to our personal therapist. Once he talked to that guidance counselor, it's like he was a totally independent third party with all the knowledge, a good span of history. That this woman's killing her kid, ruining every relationship this kid has, making her look stupid at school, the way your mom, enters the school and things like that. So mine's extremely unique, and and I don't think the diagnosis is what made my case. It was the impact on my daughter and a good third party. It's there's people I've become friends with in my group going through this process who want me to be a witness. It's like, I can talk about your character, but most of what I know about your ex is your stories. Mm-hmm. That's not credible to a good third-party evaluator. That doesn't mean it won't sway a bad one. And, I don't know whether they're good or bad. But what you said, I think, is really important too. Is they're not going to stick their neck out, because it keeps people from wanting to do business with him in the future. Like you said, he's got that evaluator essentially has to make both lawyers reasonably happy to ever get a referral and be on the list of people that you're going to agree to again. So it's all these side businesses, and then even lawyers themselves, some of them are that way too.
Yep.
The previous calls we've talked about litigators versus settlers. There's too many people and there's too many other motives to not do the right thing. The other thing, and I don't think it made as much of a difference in my case. I certainly wouldn't try unless you got good insight from a good lawyer, with the court psychologist, is we never had him write a report. He just did a conference call with both of our lawyers. And I think that
writing a report in my case.
Yeah. Well, he hasn't written it yet. But I don't suggest it because I was afraid of it because I didn't know it was going to go so fabulously well. But that gave that person the total ability to say what he wanted to say because it was essentially off the record. And my ex's attorney hearing all that, I still don't know how my ex's attorney got her to agree, to primary custody and limited visitation, because in her head she was never saying that. So I hate both of her lawyers, but the one that got her to agree to that still took 2 or 3 months, and then we ended up a retired judge actually get her to finally sign the custody agreement. While we're still working on the divorce thing, but. There's so many facets to the system that lead to not the right conclusion when it's not a normal situation. So I would highly try to find somebody who's truly third party through school or something, and I would just focus on she's doing this and this is how it's affecting our daughter. And a lot of I get a lot of details. Bedwetting, self-harming, all these things are signs of childhood abuse.
Yeah.
And it's something we want to hire them and fix them for our kids and not make them embarrassed by this stuff. But, get into and I don't know that PREs have any real training on that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, there's psychology for that kind of job. But, there's so many, once you know what's really going on and understand the psychology, there are so many signs that add up. But a kid can try to protect the protective parent, they can try to protect the abusive parent. Kids are naturally going to try to protect both parents at some level. So
yeah.
Well, it'll be interesting to see the reports definitely being written. Just to touch on, so in that situation, because we're saying the PRE is not going to stick their neck out. This particular person was handpicked by my lawyer. She's very well qualified. and my lawyer is more aware of gatekeeping and that kind of thing, has been working with some specialists. So we'll see what the report comes out. But, this is the first time yesterday I talked to her for the first time in a couple of months. And she hasn't read the report yet. She just heard what my view was, my perception of the PRE and the substance abuse evaluator. And she thinks her thoughts are it's probably going to settle. It's probably going to settle. We won't have to go to trial. We won't know that until we see the reports for sure. But her gut feeling at this point is that. I'm hopeful of that. But I now that I'm kind of rewriting my parenting plan, I still think because my kid and I are so estranged right now, I don't want to stress him out. I think a step-up plan is good, but I want to have a third party that I can go to in case she doesn't adhere to it.
Yeah, let's
we didn't talk about the pros and cons of it yet.
Step-up plan?
No, third party. The way you describe it, I think it makes sense. Kind of thing, and that certainly portrays you as a reasonable person who's cooperating in raising your child to see and suggest that kind of thing. But third parties, they're just another person that can be manipulated by manipulators. So if you think your ex is personality disordered, it's almost the fewer people you get involved, the less other people you got to fight besides her. But you can get a good third party. But again, those people are existing in a world of referrals.
Yeah.
And a system that coddles itself. At some point, you may think it, but I think it's a tough call. Again, as a reasonable adult, thinking other people are reasonable adults, it sounds like a good idea, but you've got someone in the mix who's good at using people.
Yeah,
so I should be okay.
Yeah, I want to talk about the parenting time and how much time you are spending with your kiddo, because I see this often. This is a challenge, right? You're thinking, oh, I want to make sure to make this as easy as possible. I want for the kiddos, right? They're going through something that's difficult. But what is challenging with our exes is that they're not thinking the same thing. They're thinking, oh, whatever crazy thoughts in their head, and it's not focused on the kids, right? So I've got clients, but I've got one particular client who has a very similar situation where his ex has now gotten to the point, because what happens when they spend enough time with them is what John was talking about, is they have to protect themselves, right? They have to protect themselves from the parent that they're with primary amount of the time. So what they start to do is they start to adopt these alienating thoughts about you, because they got to do that in order to make your ex happy while they're there. Otherwise, while they're there, their life is going to be absolutely freaking miserable and potentially abusive, right? And so what happens then is you go down the road too far on that, and it becomes where Jay, and I wish Jay was still on here, where Jay is at, where they've just become completely brainwashed. So I just caution you to be very careful in the beginning, to be so very conciliatory about, oh, I want to take the time to do this and step this up. It doesn't mean that it's not bad, and I'm not saying what your thoughts are bad. I just want you to make sure, because she can, and I see this all the time, just not do what she's supposed to do, and she's already demonstrated during this process that she.
That's where we are. So
right.
The kids are already brainwashed.
Right.
The kids, the words of I don't want to see that, I don't want, because that's what, and I only realized that programming has been going on for like a decade, because I took my mom in when she needed some care in Atlanta when we lived there, and my ex's comment about 8 months ago was, well, you made your decision when you moved your mom in. And I was like, what? It's the kid's only biological grandma, and she destroyed that relationship single-handedly. My stepson, her biological, will completely attest to this. Like, the only reason he goes by Ryan now, didn't have a relationship with grandma was because of mom. So I know the programming's done. I mean, I'm starting with somebody who thinks I'm a terrible human being.
Yeah.
And I've got to, and I told the lawyer, I told the PRE, I said, look, I'm doing the PRE because I want to be legally protected as much as my lawyer is saying I can be from her coming back and hurling these accusations at me in the future. And then the PRE, the kid and the mom and the kid's therapist told the kid that your dad is doing this, it's going to be traumatic. So for the past 6 months, he's been hating me because I asked for the PRE, when in reality, it's her first lawyer who started that process. They threatened me with the PRE. And then by the time it came to, make a decision, she's like, well, you can stop it from happening. And then she spent like 4 or 5 months trying to get me to not do it. But at that point, she's the only one telling me not to do it. Of course I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
I have to do it.
so Chan, there's this saying, if somebody tells you what they're gonna do, believe them, right? And she's been telling you what she's going to do post-divorce, right? Just with her words and her actions this whole time. So I encourage you to think about the step process and making this easy for your son.
On that point specifically, so just, I know you're not telling me what I should do, but I
Right.
say, and my lawyer also, I had that stuff up finally, and it makes sense to me in this idea that I don't want to stress my kid out. What's the alternative? Is it go for 50-50 right away? I mean, I've heard the lawyer say, she said something like that. We now have identified a reintegration therapist, and I stipulated to the ex that I do not want you talking to her before myself and my kid get to talk to her.
Yeah.
And so that's in place now. My kids talk to her. I'm going to do my intake paperwork. But what is the alternative? You're kind of like you're alluding to it.
So the only way we get to break that cycle is to be able to spend time with them, that they get to see you, be in your environment, feel your love, get to know who you are and spend time with you. So the more time that you're able to spend with your kiddo, the better it's going to be. Now that might be incredibly challenging in the beginning, right? Because you're going to have to work through this brainwashing. But the alternative is that they get brainwashed, and it's Jay and his kids in his 20s trying to break that hold. And sometimes they do come back in their 20s or 30s when they're adults and they have kids and they go through something. Do you want to wait those decades to do that? Or do you want to do the really hard, work right now and having to deal with the discomfort and challenges? And I mean, it might be, who knows? But the only way to break that is for them to be there with you, to feel you, to be with you, to know what the environment is, to know who you are, and then to build that relationship from there. So,
the real challenge I see for most kids is the number of transitions. So, you having the kid 1 day a week,
mm-hmm.
It's as many transitions as you having week on, week off. And the time it takes them to recover from each transition, can be substantial at the beginning. So if you just have them for a day, once a week, thinking you're stepping up, the kid is never going to get to the point where they're out of trauma just at the transition thought, let alone that. It's like you need them, to have the time to see you for who you are, kind of break down the walls. But it could be a lot of uncomfortable silence or, some protective hatred and other stuff. But, from the way you tell the story, you should be more than 50-50. I understand you're saying all the right things from the good guy approach, but I think you'd be better off, going for 50-50.
Okay. And look,
the therapist part, I think, is a good thing too, but it should be just you and the kid. Your ex should have nothing, shouldn't even know who you're taking the kid to for that kind of, therapy to talk through those things. Because, she'll poison, which eventually, a good therapist would figure out. Most therapists don't know shit about this.
Yeah.
In my group, 90% of the people that come to my group don't ever want to see a therapist again because it's so crappy, because they just don't get it. And they invalidate the crap out of you. It's the meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Just communicate better. It's like, no, that's not true in some cases.
Well, the way it's made in my case is she's talked to all the therapists. I mean, and I had to talk to any, nobody talked to me, but they just have her story.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you guys are saying. I see the point, and it makes sense because I told you about the substance abuse stuff. So the way we had written the plan is the kid can leave any parenting time whenever he wants to, right? There was that clause in there.
Yeah, get rid of that.
That was before the evaluation because they were saying, oh, you're going to be crying while the kids there, which is like, that's the furthest thing from reality, right? Like that's what she was throwing as accusation so that, everybody jumps up and says there's a fire then, right? So I'm hearing you, and I think maybe I eliminate like that long kind of step up plan, and I say we're gonna we're entering reintegration therapy, and we're gonna start out with rather than just a coffee meeting, we're gonna start immediately with a couple of days a week, right, and then move straight to 50.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to give a percent chance of getting the end result, and certainly a lot quicker. To let the kids see who you really are, and not just have what mom's been putting in it. I mean, my ex had been tormenting and programming my daughter, for her whole life.
Yeah.
So she tells me, or just atrocious, and luckily, I spent more time with her than her mom did, even though I was the full-time worker, and her mom wasn't. So my daughter saw it, but a lot of kids, even if they see, will still play up to the other parent. I think it's so get all the time you can, show who you are, and it's okay to make the situation uncomfortable and difficult if it's getting to the right place. Try and pace along, and based on what you already said, with her not doing the other stuff. The problem with the step-up plan is how do you enforce it?
Yeah.
And even if you get 50-50 custody, how do you enforce it? I mean, if they refuse and stuff, then they go back to court. But the courts don't tend to punish people like they ought to for their transgressions.
Especially women.
So,
Chan, I would highly recommend with any kind of clauses about the kids. They're kids, right? They don't know, they don't understand their kids, giving them the decision. The courts and therapists these days, like, yes, it's okay to have them express their feelings and state what their needs are and whatnot. But you know what? A lot of the needs are like, they want to go, like I have teens, right? They want to go do stuff that they're not ready to do yet. I know that. Okay. So when you put in a clause like, well, they don't want to be with you, they can leave. That's not the best thing for them. They need to have time with.
So there's another. I don't want to hop up all the time here, but the other thing in dynamic, which was that crazy in our families. The kid has. It's like, look, I agree. You should listen to what the kids are saying, but she would always give the kids all the same, right? The kids had all ultimate power over everything, and I thought that was out of balance. But I always had this weird East-West dynamic because in my family, I lived in Sri Lanka basically at home, and then I was in Western culture at school, and that always clashed, right? Mm-hmm. So I always deferred to the ex because she was raised here. Yeah. So in this situation now it's we're at the end of it, but again, she's giving the kid all the power, right? So how do I? And now that the substance abuse evaluation is out, and it's going to be like, that's not the problem. So she can't hold that over me and say that, that's the issue. The kids should be able to escape. So I guess I just need to say, hey, I want to start immediately with a few days a week. And, if there's any issues, it'll be worked out in therapy then, right? Not that the kid can just leave whenever he wants.
Exactly. Being a nice guy in this situation in family law for dads is a recipe for disaster, right? Because what it does then is it creates a status quo, and courts freaking love status quo. So we're nice, we're conciliatory, we're like, let's step this up, let's take care of everybody. We'll give her time to figure her stuff out. We'll let the kids feel comfortable with it, and then you've got somebody that's not cooperating at all, and then it becomes the status quo. And then the courts are like, well, yeah, but it seems to be, the kids are happy. It's okay. Well, we're just going to leave it this way. You've got to be assertive, right? You don't have to be a dick in this, but you got to step up. You got to step up, and you got to be assertive in what you trust in your heart is what it is, right? You talk about the difference in the dynamic, and what our kids need is they need time with their fathers, no question. And I don't subscribe to this quality time. Like, there's something to be said to that. You need to be there, you need to be present, you need to be paying attention, but they need quantity of time, right? Like John said, like 1 day a week. That's just, even if you're most present dad, they need more than that. I think they've done studies on this. So they've obviously, they always do studies, right? And come up with a percentage, at least like 30 or 40% of the time is the number, that a minimum that kids need with their father in order to have a positive impact on their lives. And you guys hear me say this all the time too. The number one indicator of success in a child's life is an active father in their lives. So your value in their lives is greater than anything else that's going on in their lives, or could contribute to the benefit of their lives. So we have to be assertive in this. We have to make sure that we carve out our time and fight for our time with them in order to mitigate this, because everything else is stacked against us.
Okay, I really appreciate it. This is crucial timing. I really appreciate this.
Yeah. Again, I want to give you an example of how this industry is cottage, and the societal mentality around this has gone so far to the other end of the spectrum. Well, the definitive reason why I finally got rid of my attorney is she forwarded me an email thread from from the opposing counsel, and at the bottom I saw her email, my attorney's email, to opposing counsel, saying there was some conference in the mountains, and it said, "Oh, hey, I miss you. I was looking forward to hanging out, blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, F that, right? I am done. Like, I've been trying for like 2 months now to get this. And, I said, we can't compel them to agree and blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? She's going to see her in court again. Like, she doesn't want her coming after her. They don't want to be, this is what it is. So I say that to say that we're driving the bus in all of this. And as dads, we really, really got to drive. We got to be real clear in driving the bus and doing what we feel we got to do. Because if we sit and we listen to the attorneys and what they say, they're doing their thing. The PR, they're doing their thing. They got to look out for their livelihood. They got to have their billable hours. They got to get their new, they're human too, right? So it's not anything wrong with that. So, but we just got to be aware of that, because we just put so much credence into they're the experts and this is what's going to happen and whatnot, but they don't know you. They don't know your kiddo. They don't know your ex. They don't know all the dynamic, right? They know that they're spending, the 15-minute incremental billable hour that they have with you, and that's it. They don't go home thinking about you. Trust me, right? They don't lose sleep over the fact that you're not going to see your kid, maybe like Jay for the rest of your life. That's not something that goes through their mind and they lose sleep about. I'm not slamming them. It's just the nature of their business, what they do, and the entire environment. So that's why it's incumbent upon us as dads that we are assertive and fight for that time with them. Cool.
It's also something that the group offers that the court system, the healthcare system does not offer. And ideally, we are caring of each other, but objectives. And we have the safe enough place to say, that doesn't make sense to me, or I agree with that. And that we can challenge each other kind of outside of this chaos. So I guess, Chand, I kind of mirror some of the things that Judah said. Judah said it's so hard for us to kind of hear what may be hard for us to hear. And I'm curious what Rob, as a newcomer to the group, thinks about having heard the range of things and people, emotions and stories, good or bad. I'm curious what Rob thinks.
The taking it all in, and with the common thread with all of us is a woman that we loved, and I still love my soon-to-be ex deeply. That it's like we're seeing a side of them that we haven't seen before, and for me, it's painful to see some of the things my wife is doing to me. And somebody said it earlier, because a therapist said to me, it's like, if there's enough love, you can work through anything. And I even said to my ex, when I was still living with her at her place in Florida, I mean, for me, I felt like it's a couple of years from being able to retire. She's bitching I'm working too much, in that I wasn't paying enough attention to her. But it's like I'm working my ass off so we get this other house. And but like, heard the term gaslighting a few times. I hadn't even heard that term. My sister used it, and I had to look it up to what it meant. But it's I'm feeling the victim a little bit, and I don't like feeling the victim, and kind of letting go of that. But at the same time, looking out for my best interest. Jude, you said it, because I was like, I had interviewed a couple different three attorneys. One of the guys like, hey, we'll do this amicably, and he's like, I really like the guy. Next guy I get to, he starts asking me some questions. He goes, well, when's your anniversary? I go, well, it's coming up in 2 weeks, actually. Which one? 17. Well, I just happened to change my residency from Colorado to Florida. I'm back in Colorado, because in Florida, I guess it's the same in Colorado, but at 17 years, she can claim permanent alimony. I'm like, WTF? What the fuck? This woman is a PA. She's got a master's in nutrition, and she retired early, and now she refuses to work. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm older than she is. I'm like, I'm going to fund your retirement? F that. And it's kind of like you guys too. And I don't have the same issue with the kids. The kids are grown, but I'm tight with the kids, and the youngest kid is estranged from his father. I'm his dad. We're like this, and both boys say I was instrumental in their upbringing. And she's like, well, you said you were their dad, so therefore you need to pay me alimony because you were the mother. And it's to Andrew, to answer, I don't know if I'm answering your question. It's good for me to hear some of the struggles you guys are going through, because I'm going through it. And actually, when I think about my problems, they pale in comparison with some of the emotion you guys are going through. And my heart goes out with the kids, because I know I love these kids like they're my own kids. And if that was my biology, I'd even love them more. I'm like, I can't fathom the emotion that goes with that, and trying to keep your head screwed on so that you can do your day-to-day stuff. Because for me, I'm struggling with the day-to-day stuff. I'm getting better at it. But shit, I think I went 6 months where I would show up to my home office where COVID were locked down. It's like I wouldn't do anything. And luckily I had a boss that had my back, and I'm getting back onto it. And anyway, it's good to hear you guys share your stories. So it's better than counseling, right? Because I go, I've talked to a couple counselors, and they hear you and they repeat back. It's like, shoot, we're smart guys, when it comes down to it. And we can bounce ideas off one another. I think that's great in the reading, but it's the old saying, time heals everything. And I don't know who said about, Jesus saying, forgive. I'm at a point where, and I told my wife, I never want to fucking talk to you again. And I hope that changes. But right now, it's like, it's still too raw. It's still too emotional. And I said, put it through the attorneys. She, I don't want to do that. It costs too much. It's like, I don't, you know what? I'm going to do what I do well and let the attorney do what they do well. And I'd rather pay the attorney so I don't have to get sucked into your emotional abyss where you play my emotions to try to get something. So anyway, Andrew, I don't know if that answered your question, but.
I thought the real call was, and the way I interpret it is, these are people who we have loved in different ways, whoever you might define it, and there's an injury there. We're no longer with them. And it doesn't matter whether we're angry with them or they left us or we left them. There's an injury there. And that injury, if we're not paying attention to it, can cause us to alienate ourselves from ourselves, and also to do very stupid things. Whether it be, get in bed with the court system, or Chand, I hear you, very much intimately involved in trying to manage just a million and one things, and we can't do it. But the core of that, I guess, and Jude, I remember you bringing this up a year ago, is we have to be okay with the pain of what may have been them rejecting us, even if it's mutual. And so I appreciate that, Rob. You talked about kind of this is someone I loved and is no longer.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate what Rob said too about this group, and that's why this group here, that's why the divorce advocate community that I put together is here, is so that you can come and you can talk about these things. And like Chan's been here now for so long, and we see and hear, and some of the other guys that come through, and Jason and Jay and everybody, and Andrew, I know you got right in during your divorce, that we can give you that perspective and help you to remember, right, that you're getting gaslighted, or that is not necessarily the best direction, that your attorney's telling you to go, etc. And then the other thing, like, Chan, let's get together and talk, and let me do some coaching with you on coming to this agreement. Because if you can settle, that's great, right? That's going to be the end goal. We're planning for the worst. You're planning for the worst, right? Which is trial, but you're hoping for the best. And if a few subtle things you can do, some of what you're already doing, but maybe some changes too, to put some assertive pressure on her to get her to settle, could save you a ton of time and money, and mental, emotional, et cetera. Likewise, Rob, like there's stuff that you can do, and processes and way that you can approach some of this stuff that we can put in place that can set you up for success, right? In the future, because what you just described is exactly it. Guess what? You will be paid, because that's just the law. There's no way around it, right? So if you can get ahead of the game on this, and this is everybody, every one of you guys that's on this call, like, we care. We're compassionate. That's why we're here. We're trying to figure out what our part of it is, but that works against us in court, right? Because we're not thinking about, oh shit, I'm leveraged now because of 17 years and because some bullshit law for the rest of my life for somebody that's obviously manipulating the system and has thought through this process, right? That's bullshit. So, having somebody to advocate for you, and that's not, again, the attorneys are not going to do that. The therapists are not going to do that. Having this group, myself, a coach, somebody that can help you to look at that and say, hey, look, man, you need to consider this, because you said something I think that's spot on. It's plan for the worst, hope for the best. Yeah. Because I'm a business guy. We're all and sell big software deals. It's like my one buddy was like, plan for this like you're putting a big deal down. Yep. And you've got competition. You plan for the worst, hope for the best. Yeah. That way you're not surprised. Yeah. You go into it eyes wide open. I'm trying to look at this as, okay, it's a business transaction now, which is another reason why I don't want to talk to her. Yeah. And just that's hard, but it's hard to do because right. Yeah. Right.
The kid is not the kid aspect of the business.
They only force financial aspects of it, because we're just talking about, like, if they don't adhere to the plan, right? So it's the financial aspect they enforce. They don't enforce anything else.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Chan. You will go to you don't pay, you will end up in jail. And they do not, and you lose your job, that dollar amount doesn't change. You know why? Is because the state gets money from all of these transactions. So that's why you'll go to jail. They don't get money because of the parenting time plan. So they will not go to jail. It's going to be hard pressed if you even get them in contempt
to send them to jail. But you don't pay, you're going to jail. Trust me, at some point. Okay, so that's how that is just one of many examples of how the system is not.
Well, don't get divorced in Florida. I'll tell you that.
Really? Yeah.
Florida's worse than Colorado. I'm like, I feel like I've gotten fucked every way possible, and it didn't feel good.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's just what we got to be aware of. But the challenge, like Rob just said, and John just reiterated, we got to look at it as a business transaction, except for what Andrew just said, and always brings us back to our heart, is that there's emotions, right? There's love. This is the person that we've loved for so long and we've been involved with so long. So trying to balance both of those is unbelievably challenging, right? But that's what we're working on. That's why we're all here today. That's why I'm here. So keep showing up. Yeah. So we got about just a couple minutes. Paul, you've been really quiet, my friend, and I just want to give you a chance to add anything or share anything that you've got going on.
Yeah, I've just been absorbing. I haven't been familiar with PRVs yet. So, like anything with this process, it's a lot of it's really just new. So I'm just trying to understand, and possibly anticipate things that might come down the road. But no, I'm going through my normal struggles trying to figure out with the X, just I'm cooperation with a lot of different things. And to the point where somebody had mentioned bringing like the third party and mediator, and it wasn't a mediator, but just bringing a third party to make sure things are moving according to plan. Like that's something that one of my challenges that I'm dealing with right now, where I'm still trying to it's a bit embarrassing, but we still haven't got through our marital assets from the house. And she had been selling some things, and I had left messages for a couple of lawyers, and I haven't heard back. So it's just been a really slow process trying to go through that. And I just don't know if there's any type of statute of limitations involved with that since I'm out of the house. And
yeah. So remind me, you've got your final orders?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that came. Yeah.
And so you're still trying to execute on some of the stipulations in those final orders, like splitting up the marital assets.
Yeah, we're supposed to split them up, but before I had, so the timeline on it was really, really odd, where we had to cohabit and live in the house after divorce. There was one of the orders was basically, refinancing the house, and if we bought out of it, at that point, I would, move on.
Yeah.
But the locks and on the house, everything got changed before that happened. So I didn't have access to the house. A lot of stuff was kind of packed up and thrown in the driveway type of scenario. But we never went over any of the other material items inside the house.
Yeah.
And I was told I was going to get XYZ, but that never happened. And then now XYZ has been sold.
Well, hey, this is one of those. This is one of those things where you got to be assertive, right? Put your head down in the sand, and you got to push the process. Unfortunately, because this is an example of what I was talking about, where the court can order something, right? Parenting times, allocation of assets, whatever it might be. But if they're not going to cooperate, then you gotta go and do something about it. And that was a big thing. I was like, oh yeah, okay, well, now that we've got this, the court says it, and we're going to do it, right? Hell no. I mean, I was, right, because I'm a decent human being and I abide by my word and what I agreed to. Not everybody does that. So then it's incumbent upon you to go back and have to force them to do something, which is exactly why, Chan, I keep saying to you, get this set up front, because she's already demonstrated to you that she's not going to be cooperative, that she's going to be a pain in the ass, that it's going to be difficult to challenge, that she's going to alienate. all of this stuff. So getting a PCDMs are good, but you got to make sure, that they can be effective, because like John said, that could be used against you and actually just add another person into the layer that creates more of a problem. Like there's all these variables that you got to pay attention to and be assertive to, and not ignore any one of them, because any one of them can potentially lead to some challenges in the future. So yeah, be assertive, Paul. And if we need to talk about that, or if you need
it's shame on me for thinking that that thing too. Even after a conversation, yes, okay, we're gonna do that. I mean, it's just straight up embarrassing. I think that's all I can say.
Hey, dude, have some grace with yourself. It's been years and years that you've been treated like this, right? You didn't just decide to be like this, conciliatory and nice and maybe codependent, whatever it might be, right? This is something that you learned over a period of time, and then they took advantage of, right? And she's still taking advantage of. So it's okay, but you have the control, you have the power, you have the ability to make the change in that. So you can do it. I know that you can.
Yeah, well, one of the things I was trying to understand more does it have to actually go through the courts, or is there something happen outside of it? We'll discuss in our divorce.
My suggestion, that might be plausible, depending on how your divorce agreement is worded, is go talk to the local police and ask them, if you put 3 days notice, will they escort you there and help you take what's yours and document what's not there that you're supposed to give you too, kind of thing. At least I try to do everything I can to not get involved, but some of them see that and say, okay, that's reasonable. I go stand by as you do this, and
right.
And
so my
the documents she wouldn't let you in, and then you go back to the judge, contempt motion, where I tried to take this reasonable action after 6 months, and here's what the police said, and and then so that the judge can compel the police to actually physically help you.
Yeah,
at that point.
It's called a civil assist.
Individual items that were sent over, or they were left outside, or they were packed in a trash bag.
Like the pictures, all that stuff.
Furniture, all those other possessions that are inside there. Like, I don't know how to, even things like keepsakes from the kids, like pictures, photos.
I've never gotten any of that. I've never gotten any of that. Just like the court order that says she has to give it to you. It's at some level, it's unenforceable if they say, well, I just don't have it.
Yeah. Oh, and then that becomes where you need to decide, Paul, is it worth going through? I think John's advice is good. Like, maybe you try to do something and then you make the decision, is it worth it? Am I going to spend the thousands with an attorney to force it? Or am I just going to say, you know what, I need to just move on and get on with my life? So
that's one of the things that I've been racking my brain with. Like, how much can I get away with, or how little can I move on with? And I think this particular holiday season was tough, being the first one, because we went and picked out a Christmas tree with my kids, and then I had to buy a bunch of random ornaments to start decorating, and I realized all that stuff that we've accumulated over time with the kids, all the homemade ornaments. She had packed up like a king super bag with a couple random things, and had thrown it into another bag and had sent it over with my kids. And it's like, okay, I just got to take that out of the chin, and that's what I'm dealing with. That's what I have to take. Is that good enough?
Yeah. Well, maybe it is, and maybe it's not, man. So you got to, talk with somebody about that and decide, because the flip side of that is, what tone are you setting for the rest of the time? Because you're going to be parenting with this person for a long time in the future. I know the ages of your kids. So, So
I know that you're right, and that's a message that unfortunately she doesn't understand. That yes, we are back together. So we're going to take it.
Oh, don't delude yourself that you're going to get on the same page, my friend. You're going to be doing, it's called parallel parenting, right? You're not on the same page, and that's okay, because the kids can be in an environment when they're at dad's that's different than in the environment that they're at mom, and that's perfectly fine and healthy, and it actually can serve as a juxtaposition for them to see, oh, dad's house is positive and loving and kind and caring and compassionate and supportive. mom's house is a frickin' train wreck, right? Like I really struggled with what you're talking about there, the co-parenting thing, but the disordered personality people, there's no co-parenting. It's parallel parenting, right? You're just functioning. They have a different life when they're with you than they have when they're with your ex, and that's okay. And so for my children, it served as that that completely different way in which you can operate in life. So they see a difference in how it is, and that is served as a positive for them to see that, oh, I can choose the life that I want. I can choose the environment I want. Dad's chosen to have his this way. Mom's chosen to have hers. I really like this one. So I know that's hard. It's hard to internalize that and understand that. You want it to be comfortable for them, right? So the transition, that they don't feel bad. But sometimes in life, discomfort is the most inspiring growth process for us in order to learn what we need to learn. So just keep that in mind. It's okay. It's okay that dad's house is different than mom's house. Dad's house the rules are different. The phrase that I was taught was, hey, I understand, but we're at dad's house now. Or this is what happens when we're at dad's house, or whatever. And we could talk offline on how to transition them during those transitions, ways to set that up. There's all kinds of other strategies you can do that helps them to feel comfortable with that when they do come to you. But unfortunately, I got to rock and roll because I got a musical instrument lesson coming up that I got a dad taxi to.
Could you pull up the chat? I want to capture those books that were recommended.
Yeah, sure.
Just take a screenshot of it.
Or let's see. We've got some books in here. Let's see. 4 Agreements, The Power of Now, Becoming Supernatural. Those are all really, really good.
It's funny. My 25-year-old said I should read The Power of Now.
Yep.
This is a kid that doesn't share his feelings.
Really?
And to get that from my kid, I was like, wow. So I sent him a copy of the 4 Agreements.
Good. And then Becoming Supernatural is great. That's Joe Dispenza. And he talks about, again, these are about how we control our mind, like Austin was talking about, our emotions and our feelings, and actually utilize them to.
Yeah, that's what the 5th Agreement starts talking about that too. And it's like,
cool.
But hey, it's very pleasure to meet you guys.
Guys, appreciate you all showing up. Have a good couple of weeks, and God bless.
Sure.
See ya.
To hear the rest of this episode and access the corresponding resources, visit thedivorcedadvocate.com and become a member of our community. It's free to join and will provide you with the resources you deserve as a divorced or divorcing dad. Thank you for listening. God bless, and I'll talk with you next week.